going to call the meeting to order.
Chief, damn. Shh.
Roll call, please.
All right.
Mr. DeSarno?
Here.
Mr. Comiskey?
Here.
Mayor Morgan?
Here.
Mr. Kogan?
Here.
Mrs. McKnight? Here.
Let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Borough Council meeting in Borough of New Providence, County of Union, State of New Jersey, adequate notice has been given in accordance with PL 1975, Chapter 231, that annual notice or revision was made in conformance to Section 13 of the Act. Okay, last meeting, Councilman DeSarno brought up about pedestrian safety, and I think everybody knows, since I've been mayor, it's always been one of my biggest priorities. So I want to bring in Andy and Marie, because you have all the data on what we've been doing over the last number of years. So if you please.
Here, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
If you guys can just pull the microphone close to you so that people in the back can hear, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, wait a second. So Mayor, thanks for having us in. So
Yep.
what I did was, based on your request, Marie and I just put together a list. It really goes back about 15 years. So about 15 years ago, when I first came here, as you know, you were mayor, there was a big push for pedestrian safety. So the list is extensive. I will say that we handle, as a firm, about 187 towns in New Jersey. I don't know of a town that spent as much on pedestrian safety as you. And there are some towns that have big county projects, but they have major state highways going through. But on a local level, you guys have spent a lot of money. And in no specific order, some of the projects that have been completed, you had Maple and Central traffic signal, which was both pedestrian safety and traffic improvements. Elkwood Road, when Lincoln Field was done, and even before, we added both sidewalk and pedestrian crosswalks there. Pearl, Valentine, and Central improvements. It's a project that was done about 8 to 10 years ago on Pearl Street. There was a number of things that were done. We narrowed the road with white lines to slow traffic down, which a subsequent traffic study did prove that. And then the intersection at Pearl, Central, and Valentine was reworked to take away this really crazy curve that was in there, slow traffic down. We added a crosswalk on the other side of Valentine and added a crossing guard there, which worked really good. And that was, again, in conjunction with the police department, which worked great. And that was a grant project. You received 4 Safe Routes to School projects from the state of New Jersey, which is actually federal money. Maple and Brookside, which is a while ago, but that was a Safe Routes to School. It involved a lot of sidewalk in that area. The 2016 various sidewalk and driveway aprons by Allen Roberts School and Saltbrook School. 2018, which is South Street, Oakwood to Woodward, Laurel Drive, Brookside, Glenbrook to Hickson. And then the 2022 upgrades to Maple, Central, and the Fellsway, Maple, Elm, Spring Street, Railroad to Central. So there's a lot more sidewalk projects coming. Those MD5 projects are projects that take a long time to do because there's a federal tag to them. When I say a federal tag, the feds require a lot. Historic review, environmental review, survey, public meetings. That's why the DOT and the federal government qualify consultants just to handle that. And MD5 is one of those consultants. So there are projects that will get done, they just take time. The Academy Street pedestrian project, which a lot of people might not know, John Bramnick actually got that money through you as mayor. You solicited him. He got the money to redo Academy Street, add sidewalk, coordinate with the rescue squad that was across the street, also improve the crosswalk at Springfield Avenue. As you know, there was actually a pedestrian hit there, so that's what caused that project. There are 8 pedestrian activated flashing beacons. There's 2 others that were done by the county for 10. 7 of the 8 are in. The 2 by the county have been done for years. Their county ones are a little different. That's the county standard on the county road. Klein and Union was a project that was done when Doug Marvin was administrator. Chief Buccelli was here. funky intersection. Cars were coming around the curve down Union. They would go off the road into that person's yard. We changed the intersection, added a crosswalk, added some sidewalk in the area, so that was a huge improvement. We had installation of new sidewalks. They're all over town. Some of the areas were on Division, in areas where there was no sidewalk. Union, where there was no sidewalk. Central, where there was no sidewalk. Springfield, Elkwood, and South Street. So over a period of like 3 or 4 years, about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big effort to go around with the police and the schools. We identified sections where kids walked, but there was no sidewalk. And you could tell because there was literally just a walk, a dirt path through the area. And you put in at that time almost 1,000 feet of sidewalk at that time. The signal study at Springfield, South, and Passaic, along with the New Providence Shopping Center driveway and the Gales driveway, was a big traffic study done. I know it seems like nothing's being done there, but there's a lot being done there. You were in the middle of the change of county engineers. Tom Minio has transitioned out. Ricky Matias has come in. The study is in front of Ricky Matias now. When it was submitted to the county almost 2 years ago, it was signal 7. So what does signal 7 means? That means the county needs to complete 6 signals, and you get your 7. I've talked to Ricky about a month ago. I talked to him again before I came tonight. Ricky said that they're going to apply for a grant for that signal. If they receive the grant, then they'll make that its own signal. So the 6 will still go on the path that's on with the county budget, and that'll be grant funded. Hopefully, as soon as I get the information, we can make some calls in support of the grant and possibly get some support from the schools. OLP is right across the street. The high school's not far away. So as soon as I get more information, we know. In conjunction with that traffic study was changes to Springfield, Passaic, and South. There was a bad camera there. Police department finally got the materials, and if you remember, the camera took almost a year to go in because the materials were not available.
Right.
It was supply line issues. The camera's gone in. Now we have timing. We'll go into timing. That's going to be programmed in. We'll adjust the left turns to give more time to the left turns, but also will give more time to the pedestrian crossing. So improve. And a lot of, as you can see if you go there, a lot of pedestrians walk through our intersection. They're on both sides of it. We have, and I'm not going to go through numbers, you probably improve over 200 handicap ramps throughout town. So every sidewalk improvement you have, every DOT project you've done, a lot of your road projects have ramps. Everywhere there's a ramp, the ramps will improve to current day standards, so that improves that pedestrian safety. In addition, this really came from the police department, you currently have 7 crossing guard posts with 18 regular guard, what's that? I'm sorry, 17 crossing guard posts with 18 regular guards and about 2 to 4 substitutes. It's a significant number. Again, the camera was replaced at Springfield, South, and Passaic, and that was done by the police department. And then the dedicated left turn lanes at South and Central, which are huge dedicated left turn lanes. So that's we'll call it a small summary of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done. I don't have another town that I've handled that's done that much. I mean, second to you would probably be Summit, who does a lot, but yeah, I mean, you've done a lot.
Yeah, we also put in the speed tables, which
That's right.
have worked out tremendously. And, people in Magnolia are thrilled with them. So, and I know we're looking at doing a couple other streets. So,
I tell you, the other thing we did, though, it wasn't initially geared toward pedestrian safety, but when we did Oakwood Park. So Oakwood Park has, I won't relive the history, it has a long history. But when we did it, one of the problems we received from the residents was parking on the local streets. And then once the parking would happen, the conflict coming in and out of both streets with cars was a real problem.
right.
The mayor and council at the time made a huge investment. They changed the project to include almost tripling the parking in that site. So that site has
Right.
significant parking, so most people now stay on the site and very little on the area. So that improved pedestrian safety also.
Yeah. And we have a lit sign over there too, stop sign, so.
Right. You have a number.
Okay.
You have a number of those throughout town.
Chief, you have anything to add?
Sure. I appreciate you having us in. Collier's information is very much geared towards the engineering side of things. Just on a normal day-to-day basis, our officers do crosswalk maintenance. We do road restriping every year. As the mayor mentioned, the speed tables not only on Magnolia but on Fairview. The Fairview project itself was a big undertaking for what we accomplished there. Our crossing guard maintenance, the traffic circulation plan, I think has been the first real attempt to nail down traffic needs throughout the borough. And I think that Sergeant Diamond did a really, really fantastic job of coordinating that effort and then maintaining it as we go forward. We do education through traffic enforcement, nobody's favorite part of, the police job, but it is incumbent upon us to provide some level of education through traffic enforcement. But we also do it through our variable message boards throughout town, educating the public as they come in and out of our downtown. Not to mention, the little things we've done, pedestrian decoys with our officers who actually go out there and test the public. We have our pedestrian crossing signs that are at our high crossing areas throughout town that come in and out they come in the winter season, go back out when the spring comes upon us. So traffic is something, just the reestablishment by mayor and council of our traffic unit. So when everyone faced financial hardships in the late 2000s, 2009, 10, and 11, in order for us to save officers from being laid off, one of the things that we did was reduce our traffic department. And mayor and council's commitment back to traffic safety has reestablished that position and added an additional person to that. So our two officers are in there. They're here Monday through Friday working through these problems, addressing the little things on top of the large issues that Colliers works to do on a grander traffic scale.
The one thing we did do, though, is we lowered the speed limits on a lot of the roadways, so.
Yeah, speed limit reductions on Union Avenue, what will be coming on downtown. Central was equalized throughout the entire roadway.
Livingston.
Mountain Avenue.
Livingston has always been at 25. Mountain Avenue was reduced in a section of it, and I believe Magnolia was taken back down to 25 from 30 as part of that reduction there.
Yeah.
So
The other, this is a long time ago, and it was successful. Back when Ken DeRoberts was the administrator in his last year, the borough made a commitment to improve pedestrian safety at the New Providence train station by Floral, and also the Kiss and Drop.
Oh,
right near
that's right,
Summit.
the Kiss and Drop.
You received state monies to improve both. You increased both parking lots and increased the pedestrian walkways around there. That was 100% success. I mean, we had that no problem.
2004.
Like 5,
Yeah,
maybe between
yeah,
4 and 5. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a long time ago, but it worked.
And the reality of it is, I think the attention that our officers on patrol and in the traffic unit pay to traffic enforcement lends itself to having a safe pedestrian experience, as safe as we can make it in New Providence. We have had pedestrian strikes in New Providence. We have not had a pedestrian fatality in many, many years here. Most of our encounters do run into a bike versus vehicle, and most oftentimes it happens on a turning movement. But those aren't necessarily a function of pedestrian safety as much as it is as driver inattention.
Right. Okay, any comments?
Yeah, quick question, or important question. First, thank you for coming, both Chief and Mr. Hippolyte. I really appreciate you giving us a recap, which I think was great to hear, of our history, or a good history of being, I think, very proactive as far as addressing a number of issues as they come up. At the last council meeting, I'm not sure if you had a chance to review it. I sure hope you watched the tape, because I think it's important you see the spirit of my comments. But at the last council meeting, I was bringing up in the spirit of continuous observation and continuous improvement. This conversation was great, but it was sort of backward looking. I'm kind of more interested in looking forward at this point. In that spirit, I think one of the things that I think you may not have mentioned, which I thought was wonderful, and I mentioned at the last council meeting, was last year you had a series of meetings with residents, and you divided, if I'm not mistaken, the town into quadrants, and you had a lot of information gathering, which was wonderful. And I think that's wonderful as far as the continuous observations. My thought pattern, what I brought up at the last meeting, and if you're looking to comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts, is that we have a lot of development, not only in our town, but in surrounding towns, as I'm sure you're well aware. And I'm assuming that's going to have some impact on traffic flow the amount of traffic, the patterns of traffic. And I'm interested from a forward-looking standpoint. I know one of the observations I've been making, and I brought it up last week or 2 weeks ago, was that I just see a real proliferation of dangerous, and I'm not suggesting to implement a mid-block crossing, we'll make that perfectly clear, but dangerous mid-block crossing. So I mentioned a couple of specific points, whether it's across from the church or Starbucks to Dunkin' path where you see kids in particular going back and forth, or across South Street. What types of things that, from your expertise, could we be doing to possibly address that? Perhaps it's in the area of education. I know you gave us an update on the traffic light. That's a wonderful thing. I don't know, a simple rumble strip in the crosswalk, a brick rumble strip that would just alert drivers that you're going through a heavily traveled downtown. Proceed with caution.
So a couple of different things. With respect to development, and this is a huge problem in New Jersey. So New Jersey's going through, let's say it's a gentrification where big businesses, big corporate offices, now even spurred by COVID, are leaving by droves or are not occupying anymore. And they're all being converted through, as we know, our Coalition on Affordable Housing has converting all these sites to residential sites. In the engineering or traffic world, that conversion actually generates less traffic. I know we don't see that because the office buildings were more in the 80s and 90s, and we've kind of forgot that traffic. If they were occupied, the traffic would be 4 or 5 times what it is if you put a residential development in. In the last 8 to 10 years, a lot of those places were empty, so we didn't see the traffic. So when the traffic comes, we think there's an increase, but if it was commercial or retail, the numbers of traffic would be way, way higher. Saying that, when you add residences in, sometimes the patterns are different. Because now it's not a business person coming to a school, or a business person coming to work, it's a resident either going to school or to work in the peak hours. So you do need to take a look at that at your board applications. I mean, from a collier's perspective, and I think the police do it also, we talk to them. If a development comes in, we look to see if there's pedestrian safety things that can be put in, whether it's restricted turn lanes, whether it's distance to school, where kids can walk. You try to look at that stuff. Again, New Providence is a solid town when it comes to mayor and council members, when it comes to board members. You have a lot of professionals on there. Some of your boards have engineers on them. Your boards do a good job dissecting your application. So I'm pretty confident that your applications look at pedestrian safety. On the other side, we live in a little bit of a, I'm here, please get out of my way, I'm in a rush. Don't you know I have to get across to Starbucks? Please get out of my way. And that's a little bit of what society has generated now. So a lot of people driving or walking, it doesn't matter, they think they're first. And when I have a walker and a driver thinking they're first, it's a real bad conflict. Even though the law, and the chief we speak to it, the pedestrian's supposed to be first. Cars have to stop. So if I'm over at the Dunkin' Donuts or I'm over at the Arc Bagel and I want to walk to Chipotle, that's a bad spot to cross. You have a crosswalk, 50 feet this way and 100 feet that way. You should not be crossing there, though people do it. And that's either you have to have an enforcement to stop those crossings, so they shouldn't be crossing there, or else that conflict will exist and it's not a good conflict. The same down by the diner. Listen, Jimmy runs a really popular diner, and his parking is all over down there. People cross there. It's a tough crossing because you have to signal. The better part down there is you're closer to the signal, so when the signal's red, the people have time to cross, and the cars are going slower. Up by Academy, between Academy and the driveway at the shopping center, cars are still coming through a little faster. Could we petition the county to do something on Springfield Avenue to slow cars coming down heading in that direction? You could. I would just tell you the county, unlike us, really gets away from putting something in their roadway. Their roadways are made to travel traffic at higher speeds, or at least travel lots of volume, and a speed hump or a table or a brick crosswalk is a tough thing. A little history, Summit's downtown, the county has no jurisdiction down there. The town took it because they wanted to have all those crosswalks downtown. And I'm by no means telling you to take jurisdiction over Springfield Avenue because that's a big number to do that. And that's a big number to have. But could we talk to the county and ask them? We could. I mean, that's something, if you want us to have that discussion, we can.
Yeah, so here's what was on my mind, and I'm speaking more on a micro basis of our town as opposed, thank you for the global picture of what's going on in New Jersey, I totally get it. But on a micro basis, we have development on Mountain Avenue, we have Bard, we have Berkeley Heights, we have River Road in Chatham. I mean, we have complexes that people are seeing going up. new residents that'll be moving in. I think some people coming through our town to get to a 78 that may not be as familiar with the fact that, when I go through the downtown or residents in town, I'm sure they're hypersensitive to the fact that we have so many ins and outs, people darting across the street. You're on heightened alert when you go through there. My bigger concern is if someone's less familiar with it and blows through the downtown in a quick manner. So, again, in the spirit of being proactive and continuing our tradition of doing such good proactive things from a traffic safety standpoint, I was bringing up that observation as I thought it was incumbent upon me as a council member who cares deeply about the community to do so.
So two things I want to add to that. One, I had the fortunate ability of sitting on the planning board for 4 years, right, as a member of the police department and a resident of this town. So I learned a lot about the plan development and the review of the plan that the planning board is looking at long-term, right? All of these reviews of development come through the committee prior to them ever getting to those boards, right? All the professionals, and the police department being one of them, are provided the plans, and lucky for me, the previous chief Buselli, he didn't want to be the decider of that. He provided me the opportunity to look at those plans, being on the planning board, and then once I was off the planning board, continue with that. The review of those plans always take into the safety of the facility and how it contributes to the area, on top of the traffic safety. Traffic safety is one of the things that we can control when the applicant's sitting there asking for variance, relief, or whatever they're doing. And most often than not, we can get concessions as it relates to traffic. I could speak personally to the fact, I think the mayor probably can back me up on this, when 7-Eleven wanted to build their development, me sitting on the planning board, it became very apparent that the level of service that facility was going to put on that downtown road was not a perceived usage that the borough wanted. It was too much, it was too impactful, and even by adding a traffic light in there, the applicant recognized the fact that, I don't want to say that we weren't welcome because it's probably not the right words, but the development itself wasn't proper for that site, right? So what wound up happening is Bart's did an expansion, which was proper for that area down there. They acquired the property, and that's what happened, right? So these eyes are looking at these from a professional standpoint. Not only are Colliers and Keith Lynch in the construction department looking at these things, but myself and the traffic units are looking at all these things and saying, how is this going to impact us? And one probably particular thing is, if we see it and we don't see a traffic study that we know is going to impact that particular area, we ask the applicant to conduct one. It happened recently with Lantern Hills, beginning of their development, that they stalled because we needed a traffic survey. I know that I spoke to the borough administrator in Chatham about the development on River Road. I've looked at the traffic plan. That traffic generation, trip generation is almost negligible to what's expected. Now, we all can say that we've tried to go to Dryers, or we've tried to go to a store over in that River Road, Passaic Avenue, and it's a traffic nightmare over there. But it's not a traffic nightmare because of that building that's being put in there. Actually, that building there is going to probably reduce traffic over the course of the entire day than what's expected there now. It's still going to be busy in the morning. It's still going to be busy in the afternoon, right? So we're looking at those things to understand how are these going to impact us. We know that a 3-story building that's going to be built next to MP Fuel has an impact on the ingress and egress into South Street. But the traffic professionals are telling us that it's negligible.
So I'll share with you, in case, I was on the zoning board for 4 years, so I get the process, and I understand.
It's a very different process.
But I understand.
But I want to understand, the zoning process and the planning process are very different.
I just mean I have an appreciation for it. So I understand there's an upfront screen that you're doing your studies and your checks to say, hey, is this proper? Is the roads, is the structure going to be able to accommodate that? I think what I'm asking is, That's one screen, right? But that's not where it obviously stops. Then you're constantly, as I'm sure, you're monitoring what's happening after that. So there's the years that go on after that, and you start saying, okay, so how did it actually play out? What are our observations? And again, if you guys are the professionals, so if you think there's not an issue, I just know from a resident standpoint, my observation, and I spend a lot of time downtown, is that there's a tremendous amount of darting back and forth. And I know as a driver, in somewhat of a scary way at times. In the dark, it's a little scary. I think that we put for example, the parked cars on Springfield Avenue, and I know that's a traffic calming tool. It increased our parking traffic calming tool. But on the flip side, it's a place to dart out between two things, and you not necessarily see somebody. So, again, I'm just simply not saying I have any professional expertise in this. I'm just saying, here's an observation. Yes, I understand there was upfront screens, but this is real life today, what I'm observing. Are we doing everything we can? Do we need to be more proactive? That's the question.
If you go, so we'll talk about like big picture downtown projects. Every downtown in America faces two things. They face pedestrian car conflicts. Every downtown doesn't. They face speed. Over years, they've kind of proven in the traffic world that having on-street parking and keeping it very narrow slows cars down. It's proven fact, it does. But you still have people getting out dart through cars. What I understand is, and the chief can speak to it, the best way to enforce people not doing that is just education. So you beat them with education. You come to council meetings and go, hey, in our downtown, we advocate not walking between cars. You put a couple signs up and say cross at the crosswalk, not in between. Remember that whole cross?
Sure.
And the more you do that, the better people will obey to that.
Okay, so you say education is an area of opportunity, I'd say.
I would do as much as you can.
Good.
I am a big walker. I've probably walked every road in this town, and I'm always walking downtown. And I've spent 17 years at Lasu Swirly. So I have a lot of experience of darting across the street to Starbucks because, it is like walking an extra 10 feet to Turner is just too far. So I've never felt unsafe. I mean, I've seen scary situations, but I think that those were crazy drivers, and I feel like no matter how many speed tables or how much you reduce the speed limit, you're still going to have crazy drivers, and you're still going to have people walking in between because they're too lazy to walk to the crosswalk, which is right there. So that being said, I think that the town has done an awesome job with pedestrian safety. I work in Summit now, and I don't see this level of, what we have. As a matter of fact, a council person from a neighboring community asked us where we got our, the flags, right? The pedestrian flags. And I'm like, I don't know. I think somebody made them in their backyard, But so other communities look to us, as for, the beacon or the model of pedestrian safety. So that being said, my question to Dan would be, outside of maybe some new development coming in that we don't know what that might look like for sure, are there any sore spots left in town that need to be addressed?
From a traffic standpoint, they 23 years, right? And that I've been here, and we're still conducting traffic details on the same roads. Now, I don't know if that's an indictment of lack of effort. I don't think it is, because Livingston Avenue and Pearl Street and Commonwealth are 25 mile an hour residential roads that have a large walking pedestrian, because they don't all have sidewalks, that we do enforcement on all the time. And long after I'm gone, we'll still be doing enforcement there. The downtown there's always room for improvement. If the downtown stayed static as it was, I think that we could probably make some modifications, but there's a desire by business owners down there to infuse the downtown to become something different, right? And we could see that through vacancies. And the idea behind us is managing that, the expectations of traffic flow and pedestrian conflicts in those areas. So school zones are always a hotbed topic for us because, kids don't necessarily know better, right? We can teach them as much as we want, but there's plenty of times where they get far enough away from the crossing guard that they're gonna cross, right? They're not gonna continue on to the either the next crossing guard or the safe crosswalk. So that's part of our job to educate them, which we do in the schools. We do it with the bike rodeo, how to safely, traverse through the roadways. We try and apply those principles to pedestrian walkings. We see parents with themselves. We try and stop kids on bikes to promote bike health and safety, like all the things that we can try and do in order to educate and have a short conversation, and do our best to help them. So to answer your question, I don't believe that we're seeing new areas created, because the infrastructure of New Providence pretty much reflects what it did 25 years ago, right? So over the course of those years, we're not seeing, other than large developments up on Mountain Avenue, the residential areas of New Providence look very much the same that they did for years, like post-World War II. So the extra vehicles there's extra traffic, but there's also extra enforcement, and there's summonses being issued and warnings being issued, and the police department doing their side of that education campaign in order to thwart
But
that.
there's no spots that we haven't gotten to yet,
From
that
the
we see issues but haven't addressed yet.
I mean,
I understand.
I
what
don't
you're
want to
saying
invent
downtown.
something,
Yeah.
but,
No, we don't want to invent it.
yeah. No, I mean, I think you're always, my contention and my belief is that the one thing that I don't love is pedestrians in roadways. So I believe that in major thoroughfares, this is the way I see things. Major thoroughfares like Mountain Avenue, South Street, Central Avenue, Maple Street should have dual-sided sidewalks, right?
So Maple only has them on one side.
Only one side,
Because
as
I've
right
been
now.
guilty of walking in the street. 'Cause
But
I-
then if you start getting into the residential sections, you generally only have sidewalks on one side, and then there's many, many streets in New Providence that don't have any sidewalks. So clearly, we've been able to leverage the Safe Routes to School to expand those sidewalk access, which everybody benefits, not just our school children, but everybody does. So ideally, if we can get pedestrians off the roadways, and part of that is, a population that is clearly moving into town from cities where there's sidewalks on both sides of streets on every corner, right? So coming to the suburbs where there are no sidewalks, they're forced to be in the street. I think it's incumbent upon us to see those gaps, to add the sidewalks where we can, to incrementally do those things. From the speed we can't control the increase in the number of cars. I mean, from my time on the planning board, traffic studies have said traffic generation is going to go up 2% a year. It's just going to do that. So how do we do that? We try and mitigate some of those efforts by either doing more enforcement. We've done some of the speed tables. I don't think, somebody had mentioned rumble strips. I actually don't think that we can legally do rumble strips. You can do them?
Just loud, people don't like them.
Okay. It's like the idea
They're loud.
behind, some people want flashing lights, but they don't realize flashing lights can be a detriment on their neighbors. So has to be a happy medium between all of the things that we can do that are cost effective, but also impactful, right?
I can just say one thing. I think in this town, you understand your town as a whole. Both your professionals, your police department, your building department, your DPW, your mayor and council, and your boards. Anything that comes in front of us, whether it be a DOT project, a planning board application, a zoning board application, something that the police see, everybody, it's like your culture to look at and see how can we improve pedestrian safety. That's how we got that sidewalk on Maple. The sidewalk was supposed to go Brookside. So the project was the intersection of Maple and Brookside was only supposed to go 3 houses at Brookside, and the mayor and council at the time said, wait, time out. Didn't come from me. They said, all these cars park on Maple all the way back to railroad tracks. Can we put a sidewalk there? And I think only the mayor remembers at this point, those people were tough getting that sidewalk in on that one side. We sat in this room, it didn't look like this, and we got our, I can't say yes, but we got our asses kicked in this room, and the sidewalk still went in. The mayor and council at the time held strong because the cars lined up and the kids got out to a sidewalk.
Right.
So all I'd say is, you as a whole, as a community, focus on this as an effort, and whenever something comes in, you look at it to see if we can make an improvement. Doesn't matter what it is, where it is, doesn't matter whether it's an athletic field, or just we have a pedestrian strike, what can we do to make it better? You cover the whole gamut.
Well, one thing I have realized over the years, human nature is human nature. And if people are gonna take the shortest route they can, and you can do all the traffic calming, all the safety stuff, it's not gonna matter. You know, you can't enforce stupid. And, you know, it's just the way it is. And we do our best, and, you know, if our pedestrian, like you said, hits are very few. And I know other places that put their juts out into the road and people get hit in those things, and it's a disaster. And I think we've really handled this the right way. And I think the last traffic study we did, the average car going through the center of town was 18 miles an hour. And I think that speaks volumes. They can be going 25. So people are more conscious about going through the towns. And I don't like parking on both sides, but it does work. It does work.
There was a study you had done coming Springfield towards Berkeley Heights,
Yeah.
before those spots were all put in there.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the speed, but it was much higher once the spots were put in. Within 68, speed dropped
And
10 miles an
dramatically.
hour. It was like 10 miles an
Yeah.
hour. It was so
And
significant.
that speed was targeted through our traffic circulation plan going westbound to be reduced to 30, which is 35.
Right.
Which, that's a common sense approach, because conversely, going eastbound, coming from the pool to the downtown, it is 30.
Right.
Right.
And you know, these are things that we don't realize, but the resident there brought it to our attention, like, you've got one side of the street that you're crossing is 35 and the other side of the street is 30.
Right.
Like, yeah, that's a fix. Like, we have to do that.
Yeah.
That's an easy one, you know?
So,
But to your point, Councilman, you had asked about the meetings that we had last year. That's the traffic safety circulation plan. That's the plan that we have in place, that when we had those meetings, the town was divided up into quadrants in order to lessen the burden of everybody walking in here with their own issues, right?
No, it was excellent. I felt I wanted to mention it.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah,
it
yeah.
was a great
So
example
our
of the
meeting in
work you do.
January was the continuation, which we'll do next January.
I understand.
To tell everybody what we did and what we need to further do.
Yeah, so just to recap again, and let me be crystal clear, the point is very well taken. The history, and thank you for the perspective you provided. You know, it's clear this town does a wonderful job with traffic safety. Yeah, the professionals, and you also brought up a great point. It's in coordination with our boards, our professionals, our borough employees. Everyone is a part of that. Our police department, of course, that's. I think that's very well documented. I think that's something we're all proud of and we all take very seriously. Again, I was bringing up, especially at the last meeting, a concern going forward. And the concern again was, if there is increased traffic flow, I think anyone would say, if you sit Sunday morning in a window, you know, at the diner, you will see multiple people jutting back and forth and cars coming to a halt very quickly. It is occurring. So my simple question was to the professionals, is there anything we could do? You mentioned education, sounds like a wonderful thing. I'm not sure, Chief, if that's something you support, whether signage or education. I would strongly recommend, if that's one tool in your arsenal to use, please use it, that's all.
Yeah, we have variable message boards that we can easily implement downtown that we've seen for other things, and specifically address pedestrian context. Good.
okay,
Thank you.
sure.
This is my first time on this side of the fence versus being in benches, so I really appreciate hearing from all of you about what we've been doing all over the years. And the most important thing for me, and I think is what Councilman DeSarno said, is complacency. And it seems to me completely, you've assured us that we're not being complacent. We're constantly studying, and we'll continue to study. Just a quick observation from my own sake. I work in Manhattan every day. I drive in every day, and I can tell you, I have to shut my New York City driving skills off as soon as I get off of 78. Because in New York City, if you want to cross the street, it's a 50-50 battle. Who's going to win? Whether the car wins or the lady with the stroller.
I've been in the car with him.
But I do think it's an education thing. You know, people just don't realize. Okay, we're in small town America. That's where more people reside, and you just literally have to adjust. And as the mayor said, there's a lot of stupid drivers out there that just want to get from point A to point B, and that's going to be hard to stop, but we have ways to do that. And also with the jaywalking and the crosswalking, I just came back from a 10-day trip to Japan to visit my son. And you can be in downtown Tokyo at 2 in the morning with no traffic and a little crosswalk. And if the light is red, you will not cross the street. It's just a cultural thing where people do not cross the street, and we'll never get there in this country. But education might be definitely a way forward with that. But the one question I really had, I know Summit recently, and maybe Chief knows this, they did a blitz of some sort where they were trying to enforce the jaywalking and the kind of illegal crossing. Is that something we can consider doing, or maybe we've done that in the past?
It's not something that we've done in the past. Most of our coordination efforts have been through education on the vehicle actions. So those are very much controlled by how the state says that we can do them.
I see.
So the best that we can do from trying to educate our people driving here is we test them through the Academy Street crosswalk and through the downtown crosswalk, through the traffic, the South and Springfield crosswalks. We gather our officers to do that, and we do, we will go out there for an hour at a time,
Right.
multiple times during the week in order to do that enforcement education campaign. It's not the philosophy of the borough to initiate contact, or the police department to initiate contact with people crossing the street.
Right.
In order to, get from one side to the other, to get from the Adams Shopping Center over to, where Avenue Deli is. It's just not incumbent upon us. We can have that conversation with our command staff and see what we can do.
If you see it fit,
Yeah.
doing it. But just to summarize, I really applaud all the effort we've been doing, and you've reassured me that we're not being complacent, and we'll continue to address it as needed. So, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to thank you guys as well for coming tonight. It's always good to hear a reminder of how far we've come and everything that we've done. And whereas we can't change the culture of people trying to do things, our culture here is pedestrian safety first and being proactive. And I want to thank you guys for helping us do that, and we will continue to do that in the future.
Okay. At this time, public comments, anybody wishing to address council?
I have a question for you.
Sure. You
Alan
address the
Swanson.
chair.
I'm sorry?
You address me, and we'll let him answer.
Oh, okay. All right. And in January, the chief alluded to the community forum where there were a number of people that made recommendations and comments. And I noticed that on Mountain Avenue, the county has stepped in and actually put in some of those redirecting chevrons at the house.
Right.
The neighbor, he's
On
right
Division.
right behind my house there, yeah. And so hopefully that's going to take care of the cars ending up in his front lawn. So I'm wondering if the chief has acted on any of the other recommendations or comments that were made at that January meeting, or if there was a report related to the responses to this.
That gets handled by the traffic department, not the chief himself. That would be done by Sergeant Diamond.
But I think you just mentioned that's an ongoing January event, right?
Maybe the chief could relate to Sergeant Diamond that would be something that would be interesting to have, would be a report on the responses to those comments.
So there won't be a report in response to the comments. The report is a revision of the traffic circulation plan, which forwards our 5-year plan, which is theoretically a rolling 5-year plan, right? We remove from what we did last year and move forward on what our future looks like. So the revision of the plan will be continuously revised as we progress.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
I have one other comment. I ride my bike a lot now, and I belong to the Morris County or Morris area three-wheelers, and I really have a concern. We talk about the traffic safety and people not being smart about things. And I'm actually going to talk about the bikers that are just, first of all, stupid. But the number of people and I brought this up before in terms of the helmets and things. And one of the things that I do, first of all, besides those flashing lights and the colors that I have and the helmet and everything, I obey the laws. And it's a problem. There are a lot of bikers in this town, all towns, but I mostly bike in this town, so then I see it mostly in this town. The number of bikers that blow by red lights and don't pay attention to. I'm just foreseeing at one of the bright turn on reds, these bikers who are blowing by the people there. That's where your next hit is going to occur.
I think that's what the chief said before. That's where the pedestrians usually get hit too. So is making that right-hand turn.
And that's a combination of whether it's the pedestrians or the driver, the bicycles. And I guess what's going to happen is with the investigation on the ones where it happens is who's going to be the one that, was it the car that did the slow down, the sign doesn't say, slow down on red. It says you're allowed to make a right turn on red.
I understand.
That's my concern. It's something I'm out on the bike a lot. And I just see it every single time I go out.
I think the other thing is that people who wear dark clothing and they're riding on the bikes are walking, and they're walking in the crossway. You can't see them. You just can't see them. So.
Well, I'll add to that. It's something I say to my wife frequently, even during the day. When we see a biker up in front, I'll say, "You see this person up here? Nobody knows that this person's. I see them because I'm out on a bike. Nobody knows that person is there. They have no light flashing. As important as wearing a helmet is having a darn flashing light on your bike. It makes all the difference. Anyway, just my couple of comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we need to go into executive session. Denise, please read the title.
Resolution 2023-2A is a resolution establishing March 14th, 2023 as the date and 7:18 p.m. as the time, and the Municipal Center as the place for the holding of a special session of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of New Providence to discuss labor contract negotiations.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Belisca?
Aye.
Mr. DeSarno?
Aye.
Mr. Kaminsky?
Aye.
Mrs. Joffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Cogan?
Yes.
Mrs. McKnight?
Yes.
Okay, we just need 10 minutes. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Belisca?
Aye.
Here, present.
Same thing. Mr. DeSarno? Mr. Kaminsky?
Here.
Mayor Morgan?
Here.
Mrs. Joffrey?
Here.
Mr. Cogan?
Here.
Mrs. McKnight? Here.
Let's salute the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a public meeting of the Borough Council, Borough of New Providence, County of Union, State of New Jersey. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with PL 1975, Chapter 231, that annual notice or revision was made in conformance with Section 13 of the Act. I need approval of minutes for February 28th. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No? So be it. Okay, correspondence, PHS, Commission Officers Foundation. This is receipt of grant money to address the mental health. And I know your committee's going to meet tomorrow, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Bill Schmelk, and he wanted to thank Lieutenant Bob and Corporal Pollock for recognizing that he had a heart attack. So, and getting Bill to the hospital, and Bill, I know, had his stent put in, and he's doing very well. Sister Honora Nolte about requested a joint cleanup on Earth Day for the I-78 ramp at Berkeley Heights. It's not New Providence, but maybe we could contact Berkeley Heights, see if they want to do something.
And that wouldn't even be a borough initiative either.
No.
Or Berkeley. I mean, that would.
It's a dangerous thing, and I don't know.
She's right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a mess.
It is, but, I hate to have people out there, I know how people, there's so many accidents over there. Okay, Township of Chatham, Stormwater Management Plan, High Vest, Board of Adjustment, New Providence Cricket Club, they're inviting us for March 26th to the Watchung Reservation. Unfortunately, I had the CSA pasta dinner that day. I'll be working all day.
With the Lions Club.
Yeah, with the Lions Club. So, and Peter Weiss, Action Line for sidewalk condition on Central Springfield. And I know Keith has been in touch with the owners over there. Okay. Council business, engineering, Alex.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2023-090, a resolution approving partial payment number 4 for Franklin Floors Incorporated, the amount of $23,449.50 for the second floor bathroom project. The bathrooms are now functional, and the final payment will be made once the punch list items are completed.
Okay, finance, Lisa.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2023-91 is a resolution authorizing payment of the attached bills payable list in the amount of $2,698,827.73. Some of the notable items were the Board of Education's March appropriation for $1,362,025. Depository trust for $1,023,700. That was our interest and principal debt payments. And then the March appropriation for the library was $93,300. Next, we have Resolution 2023-92, and that is the emergency temporary appropriation. Basically, that resolution moves money between budget lines while we're still in the temporary budget.
Okay, we have some raffle requests. RA 1182 for Robbie's World Foundation. Then we have 1183, 84, 85, 86, and 87 for Our Lady of Peace Church. And all the requests were properly reviewed and prepared. And we have a resolution for professional legal services for Rita LLC. Okay, Public Works. Alex.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2023-094. This is resolution amending professional engineering services agreement with NV5 for the Safe Routes to School engineering design. So this is the resolution amending the agreement with NV5 for the design services associated with the 2016 Safe Routes to School project. Some of the areas include Hawthorne Drive, from Cameron to Central, Crane Circle from Jones Drive to Morris Avenue, Central Avenue from Livingston to Verona, Central Avenue from Salem Road to Maple Street, Willow Street from Springfield Avenue to Southern Terminus, direct access to the Saltbrook Elementary School. Now this is just, NV5 is one of the engineering firms that's pre-approved.
Right.
I reviewed their proposal with Bernadette. They're extremely professional. I can see why they're approved by the grant to do this, but this is just to get the project moving and get it shovel ready.
Right. Okay, community activities, Pete.
Resolution 2023-95 is a resolution approving purchase order for field turf in the amount not to exceed $19,494. This is for Warner Field under the Keystone Purchasing Network contract. 201801-01. This is a project that Councilman Comiskey has been leading. You may want to comment or elaborate on this further.
Yes, we're almost at the final stage, right? So this is to purchase the turf.
Almost.
I guess the lead time for the turf to come in is about a month, so we'll get the turf in, and then we'll install it, clean up the area, and play ball.
Okay. Committee reports. There was a major fire last night at 165 Spring Street. It's under investigation, and that's all we can talk about it right now. And since the chief is here, you have anything, chief?
Related to that?
No, just anything that you want to report on.
Public safety.
Yeah, I know, operations normal. Perfect.
I learned from the best.
Okay, Diane.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple of things. The Sustainability Committee has two things coming up, the Green Awards and the Green Fair. The Green Awards are by nomination, and anyone can vote on these, or anybody can submit. It's basically to recognize businesses and or individuals in our community for best environmental practices, innovative sustainability efforts, someone who champions sustainability work, goes above and beyond New Providence. So there will be two for businesses, one for an individual. Nominations should be submitted by April 7th, and there will be social media and information on that. And then mark your calendars for April 22nd from 10 to noon at Centennial Park. We will have our Green Fair. The Historical Society, actually the meeting is tomorrow. All information can be found on their website. And the annual dinner is also coming up. It's Thursday, April 20th, 6 p.m. at Vintage Tavern, and that's they always have a speaker. It's a really great event. I really like that committee. There's some things going on with the Downtown Improvement District, so I'll have an update for you next meeting. And the Board of Health, I'm new to this board. It's the second meeting that I've been to. It's a great committee. They do so much behind the scenes to provide information and to keep our residents safe. It's a great committee. One thing to take out of that last meeting was old-fashioned hand washing. It beats everything, I should say. So go back to your old-fashioned hygiene. Our success, and we had a very successful rabies clinic the other month. So that's about it.
Diane, where do people put in those nominations for the businesses? They do it on our website, or where do they do it?
Their information will be going out in flyers. It'll be going out through social media, through the What's Happening in the Rec. So basically look at our website. It'll be on our website, and it'll be on our Facebook page.
Saw something today about our website too. There was an update there?
Yeah, everything is normal and ready for, or progressing normally for our target date at the end of May.
Pete?
Attended a very brief Board of Education meeting last night. Major things covered were the tentative approval of the 23-24 school budget. At this point, it gets sent to the Executive Council Superintendent for approval. The Business Administrator, James Testa, also spoke briefly about the upcoming bond sale, which will be held on the auction on April 19th and the closing date of May 10th. So again, it was a very brief meeting, but those were the two main topics discussed.
Okay, Matt?
Planning board meeting was canceled for PBK 44 and P. That hearing is scheduled for the 21st. We just received revised traffic plans and some revised floor plans. So, if you have any input on that project, please come out and go to the meeting. So.
Okay, Nadine?
Thank you, Mayor. Capital review, I'll just run down the list. We are going to be having a meeting, I think it's next Tuesday, to just start going through that and see what's out there. Diversity Advisory Committee, we met with them last night. We will be coming soon to council with our calendar for the year. The first event coming up is Unity Day. It's what was formerly known as Race Unity Day. We work with this with high school seniors. or high school students. They're actually the ones who facilitate the event. So more information will be coming about that, but they have great plans for that, as well as the rest of the calendar. While I'm on Diversity Committee, I just wanted to give a shout out to a student member, Nick Velasquez. He just was recently named by Union County as an unsung hero for his art efforts across the county. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. Again, our students going above and beyond and doing great things.
He actually was the one who made the poster for
Yeah,
us.
the poster for us.
Yeah.
Mental health advocacy and education. As you said before, we're going to be meeting tomorrow. They did receive grant money from the county that we are looking forward to bringing this initiative to the public. So we will be meeting and discussing that, and again, a calendar to follow. Diane covered the Board of Health. Municipal Alliance, we had a meeting last week, also at the same time as the Board of Health, part of the reason why we divided and conquered. And again, they're coming up with their calendar as well. Some of their items are also going to be mental health related, so they will be working with the Mental Health Advocacy and Education Committee, working on things together to get as much programming out there. And on a side note, somebody brought this to my attention and I thought it was very interesting. So the Murray Hill section, actually a lot of town used to have residents who worked up at Bell Labs. Very different time of innovation, very different. We had a resident who just recently passed away. His name was Morris Tannenbaum, and he's really instrumental in the developing of silicon chips and using silicon in transmitters, which made them, much more usable and much more innovative in technology. So he was really considered one of the fathers of technology in that front. So I just wanted to mention him. He remained in New Providence the rest of his life, 94 years old. So very fascinating history. I brought this over to the Historical Society, so I think they'll be posting more about it. So I just wanted to mention him, and I thank him for all the innovation that he brought. And again, that was something that we had in our town for many, many years.
A silicon chip. You should see the smile that brought that in.
As the engineer.
As the
Actually, you should
engineer,
report it on
I
the
just have to make one correction. It's
Okay, please
silica
do.
in transistors, not transmitters. But that's
In transistors.
a moot point.
And I did have that written down, I said it wrong, so
That's fine.
thank you.
Nobody but you would know.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Not much to report on my end,
At the end.
Mayor. Just to highlight what Councilwoman Jeff Roy said. Diversity meeting yesterday. We met the young group of high school kids that are doing it, and as Nadine said, they'll be coming presenting to us. I think we'll be extremely impressed with how they're planning this. It's going to be a much better, as good as the event was last year. It's going to be better.
Good. You done?
Done.
Oh, Lisa.
Thanks, Mayor. Finance Committee is getting ready to present the budget. At the next council meeting, 3/28 budget presentation and introduction, and it will be adopted hopefully at the April 18th meeting. So stay tuned for that. Beautification Committee did meet. They have some really good ideas for Centennial Park, but we still need to kind of weed our way through that a little bit and see what's feasible and what's not feasible. Like, it's if you want to just, we were saying before, kind of just throw everything against the wall and see what sticks, but we'll try to get some stuff.
Well, I know the community activities department is going to be doing a lot of renovations in
Right.
Centennial Park.
So I feel that beautification really does overlap with some of these other committees. So I'm thinking that we might work together to accomplish some of these goals, as opposed to working in silos. The library board was quiet, we did not meet. The other thing I want to mention is, Mayor Al mentioned it before, is 3/26. This is a shameless plug for the Community Service Association. The pasta dinner is back on the 26th. We wrapped 100 baskets on Sunday, so it's going to be awesome. Al will trade in his mayor hat for
Salad
his
making.
chef hat on
Yeah.
Sunday, and he'll be cooking. So, 100%, all the proceeds made by CSA and raised by CSA go back to residents in town.
So some good things is that we want to congratulate the girls' basketball team winning a state championship and the New Providence hockey team, which, GL has something to do with that too. But, quadruple overtime, the longest state championship game in history. So it was, I had something to do and I couldn't get it to stay off my phone watching it. And it kept going into overtime. And your son had to hit that crossbar. He could have ended it right then and there. So, but we want to congratulate them. We're very, very proud of our youth. And as you can tell, our youth not only great in athletics, but community service and everything else. So the arts and academics. Okay. At this time, and we also want to wish everybody happy St. Patrick's Day. Being Irish, I better say that.
And Bernadette's report.
What?
Bernadette wants to talk.
Oh,
So I just want to update you guys that last week DPW took down the clock at Centennial Park. I don't know if anyone has noticed. The new clock is in. We're waiting for a few parts. Hopefully it may get installed next week, weather depending. With the change of time over the weekend, we realized that one side of the clock at the park here, clock in Veterans Park being replaced. The one here in Centennial Park, one side of the clock is not working and one side is, so we just ordered a motor for it today through the clock company. So hopefully that will be a quick turnaround, and when they're here for the other clock, they can do it all at once. As Lisa said, we are going to introduce the budget at the next meeting. I think the original intent was to introduce it at tonight's meeting, but we were waiting for state aid to be able to complete the budget documents. That being said, there is not enough time legally between the introduction and when we had to adopt it on the 18th. So we're either going to have to change our meeting or we're going to have to add a meeting just for the budget adoption. So I'll work that out with Jim and send you guys something probably tomorrow. He was actually, I'm reading the emails live between him and the auditor, so something will have to be worked out with when we can adopt it, but it won't be on the 18th, it'll probably be the 25th.
I think it was interesting when we finally did get our state aid number. There's $10 billion in surplus in the budget in the state. We got a whopping $9,000 more.
Ish, yeah.
I'm still looking for that equity thing coming.
What do we do with the old clock? We should auction that off.
We have it.
It's actually that clock came from Paramus Park Mall. And Nat Conti was the one who renovated that mall. And he called me up, he says, "Al, you want a clock?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "A tower clock." And I said, "Well, sure. I want to look at it." And so we go down to South Plainfield, Kendra Roberts and I, and the clock's all crated up real nice, and it's green gold. And I said, and with the white face, I said, "Sold." So who knows how old that clock is?
That's interesting. I didn't know that it wasn't new.
No, it came from Paramus Park Mall, and Nat donated it.
Revolution, come on.
And,
Couldn't fix it, right?
We couldn't fix it. That was
we
part of the problem.
couldn't find the parts.
Because of the age, even the company who manufactured it didn't have the parts to fix
So,
it.
I think that would look really nice in my backyard.
Well, if you can bid on it.
That's what I'm saying, I'm in.
you have $1? Okay. At this time, we have public comments. Anybody wishing to address council, please give their name and address. Yeah, no.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Just wonderful.
So we wanted to invite you. We are conducting a holy celebration, and we're opening up for the community to join us. So we would love to have you guys come to that event. I have shared the invite. We'd love to have you guys come and celebrate. It's with potted color. We would appreciate if you guys come for that event. The other thing was you want to talk about the women's?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. I just wanted to let you know that we finalized our T-shirts for the New Providence Cricket Club, which is like the black and pink, obviously.
That's the one I voted for.
So we've decided on that, and we've got a tremendous response from the women living here in New Providence, Berkeley Heights, and one or two from the Summit area, which is wonderful. And looking forward for the season, I would like to thank the council and the recreational department for organizing and actually allocating the field for us on Saturday mornings, and so we start our season from the 29th of April onwards, which we are so looking forward for that.
Yeah.
Great.
And so that's what we wanted to share with all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we look forward for all of you to come and celebrate the Holi, the Festival of Colors.
I would love to, but
Yes.
I'm committed to the CSA cooking that day.
Nadine and I have
It's on the 26th.
we've
We'll
already
bring the colors to you, Al.
But I'll be there in spirit.
Absolutely, yeah, that's good, that's wonderful.
The only other thing that I wanted to bring up was when we had last come up, we were concerned about the turf being used for building the pitch. I didn't hear anything after that, so I just wanted to see where we are with that. Is that at this point, is that something that has been resolved, or there is still something outstanding?
I can answer that for you. So we were going back and forth with the engineers. They did have your sample piece of turf. We settled with Field Turf, which is our vendor that we have purchased all of our other turf from. It was on tonight's agenda for approval. They have assured me that it is the same height, the same thickness, the same everything as the piece that you have supplied to us. So we're going to order it tomorrow morning. And it's about a 4-week turnaround.
Got it, okay. And what timelines are we looking for the actual work to happen?
So at this point, once the turf is ordered, they've told us that it'll be about 4-week turnaround time for it to get back to us. And then once that happens, the installer will install, and then whatever remediation work that has to be done on the field itself would happen, and then we would open the field.
Okay, awesome,
Okay.
thank you. One last thing that I wanted to share was since New Providence Cricket Club is partnering with the rec department to run the cricket camp, we have been getting a lot of inquiries from people outside the town. They have been hearing about so it is kudos to you guys as well for supporting us, and it is certainly creating a lot of kind of information being shared across in all these neighboring towns. I have had people reach out they were excited to register for the club and be part of, and basically having kids participate in the camp as well. So just want to share that. So it is all good stuff that we've been hearing about, how New Providence is changing and supporting a different kind of a diverse sport over here. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thanks. I love those shirts.
They were giving us different colors, but we opted for the black and the pink.
Yes, I like them.
Hello, my name is Matt Pietrantone, my wife Patricia Kanzler. First, I'd like to express our gratitude to Mr. Mayor and the council for providing these meetings where you can inform us what's going on and to allow us to ask questions and to express our opinions. We currently live at 255 Union Ave. We've been there 12 years. Prior to that, I lived next door at 249 Union Ave. I've been there for 50 years. This comes to our attention that there's discussions and plans in the work to put a sidewalk on our side of the street on Union Avenue. We were not, this is going to affect us and other homes. This sidewalk is going to be from Klein Boulevard to Hillary Place. We found out about this and we were not aware of it, and we looked online and saw this as a meeting held by the traffic department and traffic department meetings. We've reached out to them to discuss what meetings they have and where these discussions were, but they haven't returned our calls, haven't gotten back to us. I mean, we would have attended the meetings to express our views and what we, about this proposed sidewalk. So, but we haven't seen any scheduled meetings or anything, so if there was a meetings, we would have attended and like to go. Now, currently, there's a sidewalk that exists on Union Ave. It runs from Springfield Avenue to just short of Mountain Ave to Martine's Place. So this little piece of sidewalk on our side is not necessary. Again, this is going to go from Klein Boulevard to Hillary Place. Also, this proposed new piece of sidewalk is going to be very dangerous and it's going to be unsafe on our side. In the time that I've lived here, there have been at least 10 or so more accidents that have occurred in this little section where cars and trucks have come down the road, gone off the road, and crashed and created some, very dangerous things. So it's not safe. Also, I've gone out and have noticed ruts in margrass and other lawns where cars and trucks have gone off the road onto the lawns and actually went back off and went on their way. And so, actually, when I'm out working in my front lawn, cutting grass, doing, mulching or trimming grass, I'm working there, but I also have one eye what I'm doing and another eye on the street because the people come down there and they're just not aware of how they're driving or what they're doing, and possibly they can go off the road. So I find that this proposed plan is going to be very dangerous and it's not safe, and it's, like I said, it's not necessary because a sidewalk currently exists and this little piece of sidewalk would be kind of meaningless. And I feel that the town would better spend the money doing this to providing something else of importance to the town. So.
Okay, well, you're lucky the chief is here.
Yeah.
And then, can you set up a meeting with him and Andrew? Sure. Okay, the traffic department, you
Yes.
set up a meeting. And,
Yeah.
in fact, if you could give Bernadette or the chief your information and you could talk to the traffic, commander.
Okay.
I believe, did one of you reach out to Sergeant Diamond via email?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
No, we haven't heard back.
He had forwarded to me. I'm not in the building all week, so I didn't want to reply without speaking to him first.
Okay.
But we'll be in touch with you.
Can I ask a question? What stage is this proposal in right now? Just talk, consideration?
That,
Do you want to come up?
Sure, yeah.
How far along is this?
Yeah.
It's not nearly as far as you think it is. So,
Okay.
in all of our examinations of, we missed a really good, energetic conversation about traffic just 45 minutes ago. So.
Yeah, I mean, if we know, we would have, like I said, we would have attended.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is the traffic circulation meeting that we had in January. So
Yes,
yeah,
we saw it online, we viewed it, yes.
yeah. So that's a general discussion about traffic safety throughout the borough. The discussion point is
Yes.
what we have currently planned for
Right.
the intersections there,
Okay.
and what we think is a more feasible plan.
Okay.
It's a discussion at this point.
Okay.
There's been no engineering done. There's been no
Okay.
progress made. It's really an infancy stage.
Okay. The point that should have been raised is that, okay, if there was discussions and it was going to affect properties in the area, people should have been made aware of that so they could have attended the meetings.
That's not necessarily the way it works.
Okay.
We would talk very existentially about any place in the borough.
Yeah.
It's when we start getting back to the planning stage and actually formulating what we want to do is when we would solicit the input of the area residents.
Before you actually do it.
Yeah, because we may discuss it may not be feasible for us to do it. It may never
okay.
come to fruition, so
Understand.
we wasted everybody's time.
Yeah, I understand, thank you.
Notify people when they are.
Probably.
Okay.
For the borough,
All right.
all of our channels.
All right, no, very good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Can I ask one question before? I recall, maybe while the chief is here, when I was walking around knocking on doors,
Yes.
you guys had a comment on those slow down things when you back out of your driveway. Was
Yeah.
that resolved or?
Yes,
Okay.
they've extended the road, they've put some signs and
Yeah.
some blinking signs, and they've reduced the speed limit.
Yeah.
And thank you, because it's been very effective and we have noticed a very good improvement. So
Good.
we appreciate the job that you did for us. Yes.
Cars are still going fast.
not as fast as they used
They
to.
slowed up.
They have, it's slowed down,
That's
and,
what they will do for DB40 instead of 60 or 70.
Well, Alex always wants to see the sign.
You know, it's funny, because people say, you brought it down to 25.
no, we appreciate it, yes.
You have to.
You have to,
Because
yeah.
people would drive like they're off the
Yes.
highway.
Yes.
I know, I know.
It's dangerous, I mean, it is, but,
Yeah.
Okay.
all right.
All right.
that's it.
Go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You're up, Sarah.
All right, good evening. Can I show slides?
If you do it quickly, it's,
Okay. Okay. Does it connect? How do you see it?
are you on TV on?
Can you just give me your name and address?
Sure. Sarah Aarons, 99 Crest Road.
While she's getting it set up, Diane and I have this ongoing joke. On Union Avenue, those signs that say 25, I really appreciate when they thank me for going 25.
Yeah. I like to do it when going down South Street and Chris says, naughty or nice.
Yeah, they, they don't do that anymore.
No. I'll tell you what though, those
I asked
signs
about
really
those.
do work. Cause you go over, and I know, going down South Street, you go over that hill and you go, oh, wow.
And Mountain, I
Yeah.
Mountain a lot.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you, Bernadette.
Good shot. You got H1, huh?
That one worked, all right. You guys see it? Yeah. Okay. Well, I think, yep. It's on?
Yeah.
That one
This one's
is,
not working
That
right
one's
now.
not on.
that's all right.
No, we worked
we can see this.
We're good.
Okay, all right. Sorry to make you turn around.
It's okay.
So I've been up here before, as you guys know, with the retaining wall damage to the easement area of, which is within my property at 99 Crest Road. And I just wanted to bring some pictures to light, and there's been some recent developments in the past couple weeks. And I wanted to make everyone aware, but I am seeking for a more collaborative discussion on this, and I'd like to ultimately seek your help to go to the next step, which I have some suggestions for. But for those of you who haven't been to see the damage, pictures don't quite do it full justice, and I think Councilman Cogan might attest to that, but there was significant damage where it knocked over the retaining wall and the fence that was flush against it, which is right leading into the culvert area. And this is just some pictures of this. We do have a solution, which FEMA, because this damage was done during Hurricane Ida, am I right?
Ida.
Yeah, Hurricane Ida, that FEMA can cover 90% of this through the borough projects. And I had gotten estimates from various engineers at certain points that estimated about $50,000 in costs, which I cannot afford as a homeowner myself. And it would be re-engineered, ideally not with wood tie railroad ties, but with concrete block and code compliant fencing, which the fencing that's there today is actually not code compliant with flood and emergency management rules. Because it can catch on things, it's that chain link fence. But there was so talking about how FEMA can cover this and why, there's a survey that was done by Colliers through the borough, commissioned it, that it clearly shows that the wood retaining wall and the chain link fence are both within the easement line. And they are purposely for storm water and flood control. There's even reference on the Collier survey that it's the South Fork of the Salt River, or Saltbrook River. So just indicating the area of the space. There is a deed from 1962, which where the borough was granted ownership of the easement and control and maintenance of it. So the borough is actually responsible for maintaining everything within this easement. And it does, it's very purposely, this easement was very purposely built for that stormwater and flood control area. So while the deed itself does talk about I forget the exact terms, but it's a sanitary sewer and stormwater easement area. There's an open concrete culvert, which is definitely not for sewage. At least I hope no sewage is going through there. But the borough does have a really good record of maintaining everything within the easement, and since we've been a homeowner since 2014, right before my second daughter was born. But the Department of Public Works had come out and replaced a whole section of the chain link fence, about 60 feet of it, to put a new higher fence in because there was a safety concern with 2 little kids or 1 little kid and another on the way and just little kids in the neighborhood. It was very easy to be scaled at the height it was at before. So the Department of Public Works came out and replaced that whole section. There's been fallen trees on the back sections of the fence where the Department of Public Works literally next day came out and this is when Jimmy Johnson was the head of Department of Public Works, but he came out next day and the group did and repaired the fence, took out the tree that had fallen into the easement, but certainly cleaning up shrubbery and everything that gets in the way of potential and preventing potential floodwaters or stormwater going through this culvert. So there's been a lot of cleanup that's been done or maintenance that's been done in the past. FEMA does have a public assistance program and policy guide, and specifically in this guide, it talks about how all the language points to the fact that the borough actually does have the legal responsibility, and it's determined by either having the jurisdiction over the area or the legal authority to conduct the work related to the request. So there is jurisdiction over the area as evidenced from the deed, and there is a legal authority to conduct the work as evidenced by the deed as well. And further in the FEMA guide, it talks about how an eligible public facility is one that the government owns or has legal responsibility for maintaining, including any flood control, and is very clearly a flood control area. So the second problem we come across is that there was recently FEMA was asked to do an eligibility determination. And this eligibility determination, the information that FEMA was provided was not necessarily the whole picture and could have been create a bit of a misunderstanding with the FEMA representatives. So this is the language from the FEMA determination letter in which they denied this being an eligible project. But the challenges are that most of this, the determination was based on an opinion of council that mentioned that there's an opinion that the project is not, or the borough is not legally responsible for the repair of the facility, which, and in just going through all the documents I just mentioned, there is the ability for the borough to take that legal responsibility and by definition can and should. And yes, it's located on private property, but it is within the easement that the borough has control over. And it was mentioned that it's a sanitary sewer easement which it's not sanitary sewer, it's flood control and stormwater. So you can see how it kind of leads to this misunderstanding potentially, but there was mention to FEMA that the borough does not maintain the facility, which again is not necessarily the truth. Further on, there was mention that that FEMA had mentioned that the borough did not provide titles, deeds, or similar documentation, and admitted that it did not maintain the easement area where the wood tie retaining wall and the fence are, and the borough does not have legal responsibility, and therefore that's why the claim is denied. So it was an opinion letter, there were some misunderstandings and maybe extrapolations that were taken out of context, and there was key missing documentation. So this is the listed documentation that was provided to FEMA. The first one is an email that really had no information in it. The other two, the next two in line were FEMA site review documents. So someone from FEMA had come out at some point and just taken notes and filled out handwriting on a form of some sort. And then the last one is correspondence from the borough through council. But the key missing documentation here was definitely the Colliers survey that was commissioned by the borough, which clearly shows that the retaining wall is within the easement line, and also the deed from 1962, which clearly says that the borough has the right and authority and responsibility to maintain everything within the easement. So there is the ability to fix this, and we have a solution, and we can file an appeal to FEMA to get this money for this project. So it would include including the proper documentation and making sure that the correct information goes across, and essentially providing proof that the borough is legally responsible. We have a short window of time. I want to say it's at the end of the month to March 31st to get this appeal to FEMA in, because it's a short 60-day window from the time that their initial decision was provided. But and a couple thoughts as I'm thinking about this. Okay, so I guess the existential question is, like, why not go for the FEMA funds? Like, why would the borough not want to get the money for this project to go forward with? Because if we don't get the FEMA funds, I can't fix it. The problem will probably get worse over time. It's certainly a safety hazard, as Councilman Cogan can attest to. But then, what happens? So the problem gets worse. Maybe my garage slides into the culvert, so it's a bigger problem. But who's responsible then? And how do I keep my family safe? And what about safety for the neighbors and pets and other kids in the area? And certainly there's a lot of curious kids in the area. I mean, there was talk about the green project, I think you were talking about, Councilwoman Valiska, before. Like, my kids were just cleaning up garbage in the woods behind our house, like, early, but they climb all over and they do things, right? And so even just going along the side of my house now, as you saw from those pictures, it's a hazard, and somebody could slip, hurt themselves. But certainly we don't want blockage in the easement itself, because next stormwaters that come along, it's a big problem for everyone in the area. And then the fact that borough has definitely claimed responsibility to maintain the fence as well, which is flush against the retaining wall. So if nothing's done and no FEMA funds are obtained, how would the borough replace the fence?
I gotta refer this to our council. He's the lawyer.
There's a lot to unwrap here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of statements made, or there's a number of statements made that I disagree with Ms. Ahrens, and I've had conversations with her. I appreciate where she's coming from, but the primary issue that I have with what she continues to say is that the easement deed puts responsibility on us. She's putting up the language there. What that gives us is the right to go in and repair, operate, maintain sanitary sewers, storm sewers, appurtenances. It's not the obligation or the responsibility. I'm also impacted, I'll say, in my opinion, I've been dealing with this since at least last July, my involvement, and it goes before that. Kevin Boyer did the engineering work for us. Kevin Boyer was of the opinion that if we're going to do something, just remove those wood railroad ties. So what's being sought here isn't to replace what's there. It's a significant upgrade to what's there, which isn't necessary for the easement purposes. From what my understanding is, and I believe you put up a portion of the statement from FEMA, and I don't know who was at the meeting November 18, 2022, but they made the point, which is accurate. This easement came into being in 1962. We don't know who put that wall in. We don't know when it was put in, and frankly, we don't know why it was put in. But there's nothing that says the town put that wall there. Now, the town did put the fence in 1968. And I take it has replaced and done some work. That's one thing, but we're talking about much more than a fence here. We're talking about a concrete retaining wall to replace these old, and I have to presume these are 50-year-old railroad ties that are there, that I don't think, well, Kevin Boyer, and I have to be guided by the engineer, it's not my opinion, that these railroad ties, which is what this retaining wall is, serves no purpose. Now, I'm not against giving assistance to the errands, but I wanted accurate information given to FEMA. That was my point. I don't want FEMA coming back and saying we gave inaccurate information. Ms. Aaron says, well, we didn't give them the easement. We gave them the easement language, and the easement does not say what she wants us to claim, that it's our responsibility. That's not what the easement says, and that's what FEMA found. In terms of what maintenance there has been, again, I guess there's been some work, and now we're talking about, 60 years. We cleared a tree, we replaced a fence. I don't know that we did anything else. And I'm talking again about legal responsibilities here.
Well, I know upstream, we put the 2 sister pipes in under the culvert, and New Jersey Transit did that.
Right.
At our request.
Right.
And I know DPW goes in to those culverts with the front end loader and cleans them out. So water passes.
That's
through.
fine, and that's our
Is it my
area.
understanding easements are just so we can get to it? We don't own it, right?
That's correct. It is a right to use property for sanitary sewer, drainage, I figure what the other issue or purpose of it is, but that's what it talks about. We haven't had an issue, to my knowledge, at least certainly in speaking with Mr. Boyer.
I heard a couple of things. I heard there was information that maybe not was accurate, but was not included. That's what I heard.
Not included, and saying it's a sanitary sewage easement is not giving the full picture, right? So while the deed, Mr. Rizzo, does say sanitary sewage and stormwater
and drainage purposes.
Drainage, and it has a longer term. I don't know anywhere in that easement that the project was actually for anything sanitary. Maybe, I don't know.
There could be sanitary pipes running underneath. We don't know.
Yeah,
It
could be.
But now I also heard that we put in the fence. We don't know who put the retaining wall up.
Correct.
We put a fence on it.
Correct.
We've been maintaining the fence. We've been maintaining, I guess, the trees, which is important, right? Obviously, that system is there for a reason, right? We want water to run properly.
And we don't maintain the trees.
We don't maintain
If they
trees.
fall into the culvert,
That's right.
we remove them.
That's right.
The fence goes back to the original builder, and that is on the plans.
And they probably did that for safety reasons for kids, right?
Does the fence sit on those railroad ties?
It's not on top of it, it's flush against it.
They're next to it.
So there's no way to have the fence there without a retaining wall.
You need something to anchor it into.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems too is if that fence collapses now, that becomes a fishing net in the culvert, and so there's definitely, apart from the personal safety for you and your kids, it's an actually on a big storm it could really back up and catch literally every branch that comes down that culvert.
So I know the last time I was here talking, the issue of whether the borough had legal responsibility came up. And while you have a point that maybe the deed is for the right to the easement, legal responsibility according to FEMA is determined by whether the applicant requesting the assistance, meaning the borough, had jurisdiction over the area, which the deed provides the jurisdiction over the area.
Which they were told.
But they didn't have the deed.
They don't need the deed. They were told that
They-
it's our easement. They understand what that is.
They were told that the borough doesn't have legal responsibility.
That we didn't have the legal obligation, that's right. But they were told that it's our easement. They understand what an easement is.
So Paul, you think an appeal might be detrimental because we'll be giving changing information?
It's not detrimental. I think it's a waste of time. To be blunt. I mean, we have put in hours and hours. We did a survey, we've done engineering, we've done legal work. I gave accurate information to FEMA. They made a decision. I understand why Ms. Aarons doesn't like the decision. But at this point, now I'm supposed to go back to FEMA and basically say, well, wait, what I gave you before maybe wasn't accurate. So here, this is what we need to provide you. You want me to do that? It's your direction, I'll do that. I'm just telling you, we're spending hours and hours of time pursuing something, and as I made the point, you had the right to make a direct application to FEMA way back when Ida and all this happened, and you chose not to do that.
No, that's not true, actually.
You said that you had looked at it, it was complicated, and you didn't pursue it.
I did not say I didn't pursue it.
Did you pursue it?
I did.
And what happened?
It did not go anywhere.
Well, what do you mean it didn't go anywhere?
It's a conversation for another time,
Well,
but...
No, it's not. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
we're
asking the town
diverting
to
the
do something that I
conversation
feel
here.
is for your benefit, and you had a right
Because
to
the
pursue it,
damage
so I'm
was-
asking the question.
Mr. Rizzo, because the damage was not to my house.
So FEMA denied you?
They gave me a allowance for like an evaluation of like $150. That was it.
Can I ask a silly question? And I'm sure that, I just was wondering, homeowners insurance, did that come into play at all?
I tried it. No, I have flood insurance too.
But
Doesn't
it's-
cover it.
So the fence is technically in your backyard, so to speak. It would qualify as an other structure.
Yeah, based on the State Farm insurance language and I even looked at the flood insurance too, because there wasn't any damage to a structure. Basically, what I had come away with understanding, and I put a claim in, I think too, but what I came away with the understanding is basically if my garage slides into it, then I have a claim. So then they would replace the retaining wall, but otherwise they don't just replace the retaining walls.
Sarah, did you have an attorney
Yeah.
that was looking into this?
I can't afford to pay him.
So what are our options?
File an appeal, please.
I can file an appeal saying, here's the survey, here's the deed itself.
And you understand if they deny it, they
That's it.
deny it, the appeal.
Right. Well, if we can give them accurate statements
Sarah, this is-
information.
And
Yeah.
I've dealt with Mr. Rizzo for decades.
Yeah.
He always gives accurate information. And I mean, I'm willing to have you do it.
Okay.
But, you know,
Okay. It's not gonna hurt anything.
yeah, I don't try it.
I think it's important to know, though, that our engineers have given us a quote that is 6 figures to fix that wall. So when we start talking about the borough getting involved, the DEP will get involved, our engineering firm will get involved, and then the job will have to go out to bid. So where, as a private homeowner, you might have been able to do it for $50,000, that job is not gonna be $50,000 for us to do. So I think that's just important information for you to have, because even 10% of that may be higher than what you would have paid privately.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a way I could do it, I would, but it's also, within the easement, and whose responsibility is it to maintain that easement?
Well, if it's an easement, it's not our property. It just gives us a right to use that property, get in to clean the culvert.
Well, it was
There's easements all over town, and a lot of people have easements, like they have a sanitary sewer in their backyard and things like that. It just gives us the right to get back there to maintain it. It's not our property.
Ms. Aarons, can I ask,
Yeah.
when you had counsel, your counsel had represented that you would agree to be responsible, if we got the FEMA funds, you would agree to be responsible for anything FEMA didn't cover. Are you still willing to do that?
Depending on the amount, potentially up to a certain amount.
Okay.
But I would even be more willing to put something in writing where, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know if indemnification is the right word, but taking responsibility going forward, because if it's built properly, it's ideally never going to happen again. And if we want to take the question off the table as to who owns it going forward, and just put it in writing and state it, I'll take responsibility for it.
But we have to get there.
Right.
So we need the easement so we can maintain the culvert.
Right.
It's not a matter of who owns it.
No.
That's,
But the
You
wall,
own it.
the wall I'm talking about.
yeah.
You know, Mr. Mayor, I would, if it's not too detrimental to our, call it reputation, I definitely would support doing an appeal. It doesn't seem like just additional information is needed to be put in, if you
Well, I
deem so.
disagree with that, but it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Obviously, we defer to you.
So
that's fine.
in agreement, we go ahead and appeal? Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
The cost is definitely a concern, so.
For sure.
Yes,
you know,
that is a
so,
concern.
You know, just so then you're aware, so at $50,000, which is private, now it becomes, like Bernadette said, like a six-figure,
Easily.
a six-figure thing. You just want to make sure you're not then going to be on the hook for something that's even more unaffordable.
Right.
That's what's scary.
So I mean,
Don't have-
just so you understand, the borough's paying for his time for the appeal. And probably Danny's gonna have to get involved too somehow.
He's been involved.
Yeah.
Do you still have the paperwork from when you applied to FEMA? That may be a benefit if I include that you've tried yourself and been denied.
Sure,
If you would send me that?
sure.
Okay,
Yep. Thank you.
you're welcome.
You had said the engineer was out there and said that they could take it down?
Kevin Boyer said, if we're gonna be responsible, I would just take it out.
The rest of the properties, Matt, don't have the fencing. It's literally
I'm just curious,
culvert
I'm thinking about
the whole way down.
the potential issue for someone getting hurt with the way it sits today. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
should we do that anyway?
But it's not ours.
But if it falls into the culvert, then we have to take it out.
Yeah. So,
It's, as Ms. Aaron said, I was out there, I know Chief was out there a while back.
yeah,
I slipped just looking at it, and there's not much room between the house
right.
and the
It's
fence.
a couple of feet, yeah. Okay. Anyone else wishing to address council? Seeing no one, I declare the public comments closed. We'll go to formal action. I need a motion for items 1 through 7, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Belisca?
Aye.
Mr. DeSarno?
Aye.
Mr. Kaminsky?
Aye.
Mrs. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Cogan?
Yes.
Mrs. McKnight?
Yes.
Okay, motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, so be it. Thank you all for coming, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
And if anybody needs something to do this weekend, it's the spring musical at the high school.
Nice.
Lots of tickets available.